I'm just going to get it out of my head real quick because every time, so that I don't do it during the episode, every time the game Cards with Personalities comes up, I think of that song, The Cult of Personality, and the Cards with Personalities. I think it was in Guitar Hero 3 or something. That's the only reason I even know that song. Terrible song. Terrible song.
Was that Guitar Hero 3? Yeah, I think it was.
That was the one that I had, I think. I had the one on Wii. That was like the main Guitar Hero I played, and I'm pretty sure it was in that one.
You had to stick the Wiimote in the guitar on that, didn't you?
Yeah. But it kind of felt, I'm not going to lie, it felt kind of better because it gave it some heft.
Yeah.
It gave like the body of the guitar a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Because those things felt so flimsy. It was like, it was a pain in the ass and kind of a janky setup, but it felt good once it was set up.
I could see that.
Man. Now I'm just thinking about like turning a Guitar Hero guitar into a synth controller.
Yes, baby.
You totally could.
Yes, baby.
So
Totally
good.
could.
Like it's got the 5 keys. That's good. The 5 push button controls. You could turn the whammy bar into a potentiometer. Oh,
I'm trying. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And John Hines.
hi there.
And we are back as always to talk about some video games, and we are just going to dive right into it tonight because we are fully loaded, and we're going to talk some kind of pseudo-retro stuff, some PICO-8 stuff, and then some actual retro stuff, and then get into a little conversation at the end of the episode. So why don't we, well, maybe. We'll see if we have time.
Don't make promises.
If we have time. But yeah, no promises, but we'll see. But we'll see when we get there. But yeah, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to this game that I was actually playing a little bit the other day. It just came out on itch.io. It's actually in version like 0.8, actually 0.8.1, because they put out a little bug fix since it released. And I was actually since I had like an hour and a half or so to kill before we started recording tonight. So I jumped on and started streaming a little bit of this game called Satryn. And it's actually spelled Satryn. So it's either Saturn or Satryn. The developer was actually in the stream while I was playing for a little bit, and I actually asked, and they said, whatever my heart desires. So I said Saturn at the start of the video, so I'm just going to keep sticking with Saturn. But as soon as I saw that the letters were flipped around a little bit, I was like, oh, it's not just like putting a Y in the place of the U for Saturn. Mm-hmm. But anyways, it's essentially kind of like not kind of, but very much like a Robotron twin stick shooter, like very, very retro, to the point where like, even when you go into the menu right now, and in the sense of the early access, like you have the volume sliders and whatever, but there's like no music at the moment. It just says like not yet, and there's like a little sad face. And great. At first I was like, it honestly doesn't even need it because it's just like all the sound effects are so like juicy, and like it's just those bright neon Robotron colors, and like every enemy has like a different kill sound and a different attack sound. There's like maybe 8 or 10 different enemies at the moment, probably 5 or 6 different power-ups you can pick up. And the way it works is like every level, it's like a square, playable area. And again, it's like a twin stick shooter. You're either playing with a controller or with like the WASD and arrow keys is like your kind of octo-directional shooting. And you're just trying to kill as many enemies, or kill all the enemies on the screen. It's an infinite, you just get as far as you can, as many waves as you can make it through. Right. I was going to try to get 1 million points. That was my goal for the run. I got to like 940,000. Which is better than the developer. They said their high score was like 800,000.
Look at you.
But the game just has like a really, even already, like even though it has some of these work in progress elements, it's like got these really great, like there's like a bestiary, or it's like kind of in the options. You can look at like a manual that shows you the controls and whatnot, but then you can keep scrolling. It shows you like what all the enemies are. And there's just so many, like I think there's still a couple that I need to unlock potentially. Like there was just this new one that popped up while I was streaming that I hadn't seen yet. Like this kind of large green enemy that would shoot out these like homing attacks, and like the waves just keep getting way like stacking up, and there's maybe a little bit of balance issues that need to be tweaked out a little bit. Like some waves just felt like, man, wave 3, that was really tough, where like the furthest I made it I think was to wave 25. But they were saying like they watched some people get up to 2.5 million points. So like that, I'm not even, even if I cracked 1 million, I'm not really holding my own. But like, I've played stuff when I'm going back and playing retro stuff, particularly, Robotron. I've only ever played it on like an arcade cabinet with its like kind of weird control setup.
Yeah.
But like, I gotta say, like, playing something like this is just like, there's no need to ever play Robotron again, because you're getting like spread shots, you're getting all these crazy, it's just like, I don't know, it's just really frantic. It's really like kind of, again, like we've talked about before, it's like you get in that zen state of trying to dodge stuff.
My head immediately goes to like Geometry Wars kind of stuff too. Like there's not enough games like that anymore. Those are fun type of games.
Yeah, where you're just kind of like in an arena, you're like in a one fixed location. And one thing I do like is like, even though it is kind of like a fixed square, it does like kind of scroll with your character like just a little bit to where like if you're at the very top of the screen, like you won't see the very bottom of the arena. And then the one thing I didn't mention actually are kind of the main mechanics. So on top of the enemies, there are what are just called your friends on the screen.
Okay.
And those are just kind of all randomly populated as the waves or the levels kind of start and spawn. But like every 25 friends that you collect, you get a free life or an extra life. Nice. So you start with 3, so you keep stacking those up. And then on top of that, every time you, those are also like what act as your score multiplier. So like the more you're collecting of these friends, not only are you able to extend your run, but they're also multiplying your score as you go along. The overall, like when you collect 25, like if you die when you're at 33, it'll go back down to 0. Now, when I get another 17, I will still get another free guy or an extra 1-up, but like it's not gonna reset the combo only counts for how many I have on that current life.
Okay.
But the overall counter will still give me the extra 1-ups. And then every time you get 75,000 points is when a power-up will drop. So it's like really kind of dependent on how you're playing. You got to be kind of careful, especially on the early levels, to not wipe out all the enemies before you collect all the friends. But the enemies will also kill the friends. So they will specifically like go for them and attack them and stuff. So you don't really get penalized other than the fact that you just can't, multiply your score a little bit more.
Can you accidentally shoot the friends?
I think that you can so I don't think you can shoot them with your shots, but you can shoot them if because you can actually like shoot a lot of the enemies' projectiles, but a lot of the enemies, like after you kill them, they'll like kind of explode and blow up, or they'll be like mines. So if you like shoot a mine and that blows up, it'll kill the enemy. Or if you kill an enemy that explodes next to a friend, they'll blow up. But it's really nice. Like they're the same. The friends are the same color as you. Everything else is like a different color, but like really just like, I don't know. It's like really minimalist and really retro, but like, at the same time, it's just like it pops really, really well. It's got really tight gameplay. I'm really excited to see. And even though I was saying that, like, it doesn't even really need the music, I think I might have already said, but the developer was like, I'm definitely planning on adding some slam and chip tunes. So
nice.
I was like, nice. Like, I was like, even though I said it doesn't need it, I'll definitely take it.
Of course.
Because, but this game just feels so action packed and it's just so juicy. I just can't get enough. Like I really will. I can't wait to see like what happens when it gets fully fleshed out, and it's entirely free. They suggest
Saturn.
like if you can, they're like if you can spare $3, cool. But if not, I just want as many people to play this game as possible. So
I love it.
Really cool. Yeah, it's so awesome. And yeah, it's from Maybell, by the way. We'll put a link in the episode description, but Maybell is the developer. Nice. But John, we've been dipping into a bunch of PICO-8 games, and I know that you have actually checked out. I think I might have even suggested this game or just mentioned it because I love Sebastian Lind. I know we've talked about his games on the podcast before, but yeah, you've been spending some time with Cards with Personalities, and I have as well. But you've been spending more. So what have you been thinking of that?
Well, I'm always a sucker for an RPG or an RPG-ish mechanics in any game. So when you recommended this game to me, I was really excited for it because it had, all the things that are John Bate, RPG mechanics, like really distinct art style and deck building. So I was really into it, like just from the description. And I started playing it and I really didn't bother looking at the instructions because I was
Same here.
oh man, I can probably figure it out. And
Same here.
Man, I was able to get certain mechanics right very intuitively, and like it's a PICO-8 game, so really your only options for moving around are the 4 directions and then the circle and X buttons. And the game is really good at presenting information to you. Like each card that you play will have either a play option or a read option, and the read will pull up a larger like splash screen, which will tell you exactly what the card does with like a description of the character displayed on it as well as what it will do. And I was doing what I thought was pretty well until I realized I wasn't doing any damage to the boss. Oh, no. And I was like, oh, man, I really do not have much health left compared to the boss. And I realized that I should have been attacking the boss. Because what the whole premise of the game, or like the way that you advance in the game, is that you have a row of cards that is your deck, and that's at the very bottom. And then there are, I don't know what they're classified as or called in the game.
It's a row, but it's like the river kind of in a poker hand or whatever that's called.
Right.
Like there's the 5 cards that are like a pool or whatever.
Right. And those cards aren't necessarily interacting with your cards, but you need to either spend gold in order to buy them or spend attack in order to defeat them. Like they're like small monster cards as opposed to the big boss card, which is at the top. And the boss will have an attack that happens after certain conditions are met. The first one is just like after, I think, 3 turns pass, then the boss attacks you. Later on, it goes more into the resource pool, which you have at the very top of the screen. But at the beginning, you would just have simple cards that just either give you 1 gold or 1 attack. And as you're playing your hand of these cards, you're spending those to play on the river row of cards, and some of those will give you more attack, some of them will give you defense or like more gold. And certain monsters,
like as you're buying or killing those, you're adding those to your deck.
Yeah, the buying ones are ones that you add, and the killing ones will just give you either a reward, like so you're spending your attack either on the boss or on these monster cards. And it's just a really good balance of like, all right, like, do I just need to improve my deck right now, or can I like get some damage in? And a lot of the cards will just add new mechanics that I think are really, really interesting in terms of like, because they're all single match boss battles. Like it's not like you're building your deck and then you have this deck for your next battle. Like you start each boss battle with the same hand of which I think is like 7 bards.
It's 7 bards and 2 or 3 of the like knights or whatever.
Yeah, so you like are predominantly getting gold at the beginning of the game, and you're spending that on better cards that you'll introduce into your deck. But like some of them will add other mechanics. Like one of them will be like, oh, like you will get to draw 2 cards, but you have to destroy 1. So like, or another one will be like, oh, like you will. Actually, I'm trying to think of like what's the other mechanic. It's like,
well, there's like the grave digger or whatever, where you can go into your discard pile essentially and like pick a card out of it. But usually, at least the card that I've come across where that's like a mechanic, it's like I do have to not destroy a card, but I have to discard a card. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like the first time I used it, I hadn't discarded a card yet, and that was the last card I used. Mm-hmm. So that the new card I pulled out of the graveyard, I had to discard.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I have to discard a card after I use that one. So like I had to. There's like a few, like you even have to kind of get into a little bit of that like Slay the Spire, like ordering of
right.
You know what order you play cards in. It's not just because at first it is just like you said, you get kind of 5 gold, maybe even on your first hand. I think it's a 5-card hand.
Yep.
So it's just like, I'm just going to play all 5 cards, get 5 gold, and see what I can buy. And it's like, it's kind of simplistic. So I was like, okay, it's a PICO-8 game, but it's pretty robust. I have not even beaten the first boss yet, and I'm still seeing new cards.
Yep.
I'm still seeing all kinds of new mechanics, and like you're saying, like all these new resources that are up on the top that I just kind of realized. Like at first I was like kind of still reading every card, and I was like, okay, once I play enough of this and learn what all these are, I'll kind of get the gist of things and be able to kind of play it from memory a little bit. But now that like at the top of the screen, there's all these little icons that like I'm starting to learn what they mean. Like, oh, when there's a little garbage can, that means discard a card. When there's 2 garbage cans, you have to discard 2 cards. When there's like a little fireball, it's a destroy a card or whatever the logos are. But it's so well.
But also, when you hover over a card in like those river ones, you don't necessarily need to, or any of the, I think in both rows, like, and when you hover over a card, it will just display the icons and like that icon multiple, like if it gives you 3 attack, it will just have like 3 of the swords in a row. If it gives you like 4 gold, it will show you 4 gold or like a combo. And like, so it's just a really good use of UI because like you don't need to like read the, descriptions of every card once you know what each icon does.
I was just getting the gist of that like the last like maybe 2 runs or so that I played, and I was just like, ooh, nice, because I was like I wouldn't even say it's clunky going in and reading them all, because I do like just looking at the little splash screen and the pixel art and getting a little blow up of the image or whatever. But yeah, it's like it's so well done. It's so polished, and I think he just added a bunch of quality of life improvements, including if you go into the pause menu, you can actually. One of the things that's nice, like you were saying, you're forgetting to attack the boss. You can actually put like auto attack at the end of your turns. So like you can turn on a few settings that'll be like, okay, so that I don't have to go and directly pick to attack the boss at the end of my turn every time. You can just say, okay, whatever attack I have left when I end my turn, I want it to attack the boss automatically. And there's like a few different things like that he's added in, and like the whole rule description being built right into the game instead of having to read it on the website. I think that was all like just added to the game.
Nice.
And like, he's talked about, well, at least in like the comments on itch.io, like saying like, oh yeah, like he's thinking about expanding this into a much larger game. And man, I would love to see, like, I love this game as is, but I would also like to see this, like, just mechanics blown out into a much bigger game, because it's great.
Or just being able to like play it on your Switch or something like that, you know, like even in this form, because it doesn't need more, but I would certainly play more.
Oh yeah.
Although I still got to beat this first boss. And I guess just real quick while we're at it, talking about Sebastian Lind, I did want to just give a shout out to his most recent game. And he doesn't make a ton of platformers, I will say. But he made this game called I Demand Coffee, which I just love the name of the game even. And you just play as this like little yellow dude that runs around, and you can jump, you can climb on walls, like kind of Celeste style, although you don't even seem to have like a limit to how long you can cling to walls and climb up them. And then you can kind of like hold down the other button other than jump to kind of like float and hover down, almost like you're floating down and like holding down the cape button with Mario and Super Mario World. And like, that's essentially the gist of it. And it's kind of like a little bit of a maze exploratory platformer, like where there's a little bit of open world puzzle. So, you know, you got to go get a key in this room and then backtrack a little bit and get back to where you need to unlock this key or whatever. But it's just a really cool little fun platformer. There's not too much to it, but there's some. It's actually pretty damn tough, and it's a little bit longer than most on the PICO-8. I mean, I've ripped through some of these platformers in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure.
This one took me like 20, 25 or so. Nice. And yeah, it's just got a bunch of cool little, like, just really well done level design. Like, just another winner from Sebastian Lind yet again. And this guy just cranks them out. He's done like, I think 3 or 4 games in the last month. So it's just a month or 2.
Wow.
But it's just wild. And some of them are like little game jam entries. One of them was even not a PICO-8 game, but man, just so cool. And one other mechanic that's really cool too is you actually, when you're like holding down that cape like flutter button, there's like these light bulbs that you bounce off of if you're holding that down, and they like are really, it's like very much like a 360 degree angle based on where you're bouncing off that, almost like a pinball bumper.
Okay.
So like you're kind of, it's just really cool. Really, it's like the couple mechanics that they throw in throughout the game are really nifty, and just another winner that I just wanted to get. I just love this guy's game so much. So just wanted to give that a quick shout out. And then I wanted to also shout out another kind of open worldy platformer-ish, although it's not really a platformer on the PICO-8, that John actually, I think, brought to my attention, called GRiPPY, that we checked out. I know you checked it out a while back, and then I actually played it a little while ago too. But yeah, what did you think about that one, John? Because I actually ended up playing all the way through that one, and man,
no, we should reverse our rules that we did for
okay,
because I only played, I think, the first
It's all one level. It's all one level.
So then I made it past
like
3 checkpoints or so.
Okay, we'll flip the script. Yeah. It's very similar to I Demand Coffee in that sense, where it is just kind of like one level that you just have to get to like kind of the end of the maze / obstacle course. And the kind of gist of this game is you're this kind of red blob character, or actually you can pick different colors.
I was green.
The main kind of color is red, is like the main, like if you go to the page or whatever. But you basically, the 2 buttons on the PICO-8, the X and the circle, are like correspond to your right and left fist. And then you use the D-pad or the directional buttons to like rotate the direction of your fist. So either left or right will like kind of rotate an arrow that rotates around like in a circular motion around your fists. And then there's just kind of throughout, it's like a 2D side scroller, but it's like you can't really jump. You technically can by like hitting both like buttons at the same time. You can do this like little kind of hop or something, but it's more to like kind of get yourself out if you're stuck, I think, in like a little corner or something. But like you essentially have to like, you know, almost like DK King of Swing.
That's what I was just thinking
familiar.
about.
It's very similar to that game, except like you don't have shoulder buttons to work with. It's a little less intuitive, I guess. But once I got the hang of it, it started feeling a little more natural.
Yeah.
But it feels a little more, you know, when you have the shoulder buttons to like left, right. When I'm doing it with my thumb on a gamepad, it was a little bit less intuitive. But still, once I got like in the groove, like I could see people getting into this game for speed running.
Oh yeah,
like crazy, because it's like really physicsy and really like, yeah, you can really get some momentum going if you like get some sway. Like, let me grab this like rope that's hanging down, or like these vines, and there's like, you can just pretty clearly tell like, okay, here's an area I can go. But you really later in the game have to like kind of like be holding onto this ledge and like stretch your, like at the top, and like stretch your other arm like all the way down, like, and just barely not touch these spikes, and like whip yourself around and like have it like let go at the right time to throw yourself over the spike pit. Like,
nice.
Oh man, it got so like, this one took me almost an hour to play through. And man, it was brutal, but in the best way. Like, I was having so much fun, and it's like that kind of frustrating controls, but that feel really, really fun. I don't know how else to describe it, but like I was getting annoyed, or annoyed is not the right word, but I was like getting aggravated, but like having fun with it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to like. I still can't think of the game that it reminds me of. Like, since I played it, like I've been.
I remember you saying that.
There's a very specific game in my mind that like it controls very similar to, but I just cannot remember it, and it's driven me up the wall. But like in that,
it blows my mind that it's not King of Swing. But
I never played King of Swing, so I know it's not that one.
Good game, pretty good game.
But it is in that. It falls in that genre for me of like where the battle is with the controls, and less like like games like Roundabout or Octodad, where you purposely have a like your character is something that is difficult to control.
Yep.
And like it's not a hindrance to you enjoying the experience. It's kind of you navigating that, and like having that loss of control or that awkward control is the charm. And man, like it is also just really fun to play. Yeah, you put it kind of has even a little bit of that like Bennett Foddy feel, you know, like that like getting over it with Bennett Foddy, where it's like you're battling the controls a little bit. That was kind of another game I thought of while I was playing it. Was it Get It Over It? No, was it Climb Your Friends? What was that Xbox 360? Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy is like that game with the guy in like the cauldron and the pickaxe.
No, I literally just remember. No, but it's that Mount Your Friends. Mount Your Friends.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't that
this game? Xbox 360 game?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
I don't know.
It controls. This is the. Oh my god! It took you saying Getting Over It. I mean, yes, but yeah, like because Mount Your Friends is a 4-limb thing where you are either controlling like you're holding. It's the same control scheme as GRiPPY, where you anchor one arm or limb, and then you kind of like swing the rest of your body over. I'm literally moving my body trying to illustrate this on a podcast.
The same thing. Yep, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, you put your hand here. And then
but I'm just so glad I remembered that game. That's been bugging me for weeks. God,
I am too, because I couldn't believe it wasn't King of Swing. But no, it's so fun, and just like you mentioned with cards with personalities, John, I popped into the PICO-8 Discord right around the time that this game came out, and the developer happened to be just jumping in there too, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm playing." I kind of made this as a prototype, and like was hoping to like flesh this out into like a full-fledged release. Like nothing against the PICO-8, but just like, hey, I want to go beyond what the limitations of this fantasy console and explore releasing this as like a full-fledged game. And I would be super pumped to check it out. Like it's really, really cool. Very unique game, I would say. And then just real quick, since we're talking about climbing games on the PICO-8, since GRiPPY you're very much like climbing around all over the place. I checked out a game recently called Yolo Solo, and John, I think you checked out a little bit of this one too. Mm-hmm. And this is more like a side-scrolling, which I guess GRiPPY is too, like I said, but this is more like a side-scrolling, like Celeste-style platformer or whatever. I hate that I always use that as like the example of any kind of climbing precision platformer, but it is what it is. Yeah, my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
It is a great game.
Oh yeah.
And this game is about climbing, but the difference here is like you actually like the things that you're climbing are more like built in the background, so you're kind of like it's more like you're grabbing. There'll be like some cracks in the wall, and there are some where it's just like a spot that you can like grip onto and then jump from there to the next platform or maybe the next grapple point. But it's more like you're actually like kind of rock climbing almost is like kind of the theme. There's actually at first there's kind of this like blob up in the upper right corner that like I was like, what the heck is this like thing up in the right corner? I was like, oh, it's a hand, and it's like actually shows like when your hand is open or when it's gripping.
Oh wow.
The like whatever you're grabbing onto. So there, and you have like a grip meter for how long you can, not necessarily how long you can hold on, but every time if you grip, you can climb as much as you want, but then when you jump, it uses your meter again until you touch the ground. Okay. So like you got to like eventually touch the ground to recharge your meter. Mm-hmm. And there's like just 17 levels. I think it was made for like a low res jam or something like that. It was definitely made for a game jam. But I just found it to be like really charming. Like the death animations are really great. Like when your character just kind of splatters into pixels at the bottom. And like, I don't know, just like the little touches of like the little like rope that's kind of dangling from your character just has like a really nice like pixel physics movement to it. Nice. And like really tight controls, really nice level design, a little bit of puzzle solving going on in the later levels, like, but nothing too challenging. Like they do start out like almost single screen-ish challenges, but they get into some decent sized scrolling levels. But what did you think about this one, John? I know you just played a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, I had a fun with it. Like I was still like playing most of my like PICO-8 on mobile, which is not the ideal way to do, and especially
this is like very much a precision platformer. You weren't playing GRiPPY on your phone, were you?
I don't know if I was or not. Maybe.
I can't even imagine.
No, because like, there's so much momentum in that game. There's no way I would have played it past.
And like the way you have to like hold down buttons and like and jump between
Absolutely
the two of them.
Not.
Yeah,
no, I definitely played that on PC or Mac. But
good deal. Good deal.
No, I enjoyed it, and like I was for the longest time like I couldn't figure out how to like I had to hold the grip button, like obvious, like so like I kept like couldn't make it past the first jump because I kept jumping into the thing, hitting the button, and then being like, why am I falling?
Yeah, it is a little finicky in the sense that like or not finicky, but you have to like it has a little window where like you can't be holding the grip button and jump. You have to let go of the grip button and then jump. But if you wait too long, you can't jump.
Right.
So it's like you have just like the smallest window. But it's just like, I don't know. I thought it was like a really tight precision platformer. It didn't take me too long to rip through, but again, another one that I'm sure speedrunners could get into, and another one that like I would love to see fleshed out into a bigger experience, because I thought the way you were kind of scaling the walls in the background, I just thought was really cool. As opposed to like scaling up the sides of walls in 2D platformers. I don't know, just a nice different twist. But why don't we get into some actual retro stuff. Although I think this retro situation has like sort of a modern release. One of the games that we're going to dig into here, Randall. So why don't you take the lead on this one on some NES games here?
Another game with an awesome death animation. I'll say that right out the
gate. 100%. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I would have never brought that up, but that's so sweet.
Oh, that's why I got these sweet notes. You know, that explosion, sprite animation.
It's so good.
I'm going to talk about Metal Storm. You know, let that cat out of the bag now. Metal Storm is awesome. It's not necessarily a super hidden game if you're an NES aficionado at this point, but it's a game that I've wanted to talk about for a while. It's a game that I've had in my collection for a while. The original release I was able to get before it got ungodly expensive.
Same, thankfully.
Yeah. Both of us got lucky there. And then Retrobit, who has been awesome, a company that's been awesome about re-releasing a lot of old games physically, put out essentially the Japanese version with some changes out in 2019. So I went and scooped the collector's edition of that when that was available too. It's got a nice little cute M308, which is like your main character mech robot guy. It's got a little figurine of that, which is super sweet too. That it came with. So, which I'll say right now, like the M308 mech robot character has got to be one of the coolest like 8-bit protagonists around.
Yeah, there's some like pretty generic looking mechs out there, and this is not one of them. I would say
no, definitely not. Got that like 80s anime type of look to it in a very cool way.
Yeah, and even just like the color palette of it and everything. Yeah, I really like it a lot. Yeah.
Yes. But if you haven't played Metal Storm is a very cool kind of action platformer, and the big conceit is the gravity reversing gameplay. So at any time you want, you can kind of press the A button and up or the A button and down to reverse gravity and end up on the ceiling or on the floor. And any enemy that's just walking will also follow that same gravity pattern along with you, which can really, adjust your strategy for how you run through levels.
Oh, yeah. It makes things dicey, like quick, like other than the turret, because it'll throw you off, too, because like the turrets will stay put, but the enemies will flip and you're like, oh, shit, like that just flip. Yeah.
Yes.
Really cool.
A lot
really
to
cool mechanic.
Yes. A lot to get used to there, I'll say. There's a learning curve along with Metal Storm.
Yeah, especially when you're playing on the ceiling, at least for me. Yeah. Like once I flip the I just like forget to jump a lot of times. Like I forget that I can jump once I'm on the ceiling. Like I only think about flipping gravity back to normal. There was one puzzle I got stumped on for like 10 minutes, and then I've realized I was like, I can just jump.
Oh yeah.
I felt so stupid.
Although once you click your brain over to that, I felt like I was on the ceiling more than I wasn't. Like
interesting.
That became my default state, is to be reversed essentially. And it's really cool too, because like for being and granted this again, a late NES release, we've had a string of these we've talked about. This is from 91, and weirdly it came out in the US before it came out in Japan.
Ooh.
So like that doesn't happen very often.
Almost never, unless it's Star Tropics, where it doesn't even come out in Japan.
Right, which is a shame as well, because that game's dope and it should have come out in Japan.
Hopefully they've gotten it by now.
Yeah, I wonder.
I gotta think they have. If we've gotten a lot of the Japanese releases, I gotta think they've gotten a few imports on their end.
Like
but
Mike Jones USA or something. Like I wonder what they would call it.
Yeah.
I hope they did. Yeah. Anyway, you get an adapter. You should, play Star Tropics, folks. It's a good game.
Great game.
But yeah, Metal Storm is tough. It is a hard game. I'll say that much. Even the US version is considered easier of the two that I own. The Japanese version has been tweaked. It's a little bit more difficult as far as like enemy placement in levels and things like that. But man, like even the US version is tough. Like,
oh yeah,
I played this game a lot recently to get myself back up to speed to talk about it, and I still only made it to level 4 or 2, and that was after quite a bit of trying and using the password stuff to get back to the beginning of levels type of thing.
Yeah, and that's further than I got. I got to the boss at the end of level 2, so I guess I think that's probably 2, 3 or whatever. I think it's just there's like 2 chunks of each level and then the boss, it seems. And I got to the boss with like my last life ready. And this is after I did my stupidity of like, I was like, how do I get through this section? And I was like, oh, I just jump. And there's these gates that like, if you flip gravity, they open and close. And like, but if they hit you, they kill you. Yes. So I kept sitting here and I kept trying to flip gravity. I was like, there's gotta be a way that I can like flip faster than this thing. And then like all of a sudden I realized I was like, I can just jump when the fucking gates open. I was so mad at myself. But anyways,
that's a tough level though. Like like level 2 is hard. Like,
and it's kind of like a little bit mazy because like things like loop around a little bit because you can like if you keep climbing and going up, like it's almost like broken into tiers.
Yep.
And if you keep going up and like jumping up layers, like you'll eventually just get to where you were.
Yep.
And you kind of almost have to like eventually get to the exit. You're still moving just pretty much to the right. But if you keep going up or down, one of the things I really like too is that you can flip gravity in midair.
Yes.
So like even though it has very much that like VVV feel, like in VVVVV, I don't think I said the correct number of V's in either one of those times, but I know I always split it up 3 and 3. That's always how I do it too, but I just couldn't like think at that moment. But I think you can only a great game.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wonder if it was even inspired by this game to some degree.
I would bet.
I gotta think. Yeah, Terry knows his stuff. So like, but I think you can only flip gravity, correct, in that game. Like there's no jumping and then flipping gravity, correct? It's only flipping.
That I can't quite say, but yeah, I believe
like there's
so.
there's different like gimmicks where there'll be like a little laser beam that will like automatically, like when you hit it, you'll flip automatically. But like I don't think there's any way to like jump over a gap. You always have to flip.
Right.
But this game, I really like how you can like, and you get all kinds of power ups that like when you're flipping, you like turn into like a fireball.
Yeah.
That'll kill enemies.
Which can take out enemies, which is sweet.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And like all kinds of like armor upgrades. Because otherwise you're one hit killed unless you pick up an armor.
And that's why it's so hard, is the one hit kill, like including boss battles, unless you got that armor upgrade. It's one like... It's another one of those NES games you have to give a little bit of leeway to as far as a slight memorization aspect going on, because it's one hit kill in boss battles is rough.
I agree 100%. And the one thing I will say is like, thankfully playing these in the modern age, like even though I own the cartridge, I was booting it up on an emulator just for convenience, and I was like, and for the save state factor, you know, because I was like, at the end of the day, like when I was a kid, like we talk about all the time on the podcast, this is a game I would have had in my NES and left it on, just like I did with Super Mario Brothers 3 with my brother for like a week, you know, just leave it on and beat a world, you know, whenever we had the time. But like we can't turn it off, we can't lose our save. So like that's what I would have done with this. So to me, using a save state in that regard, like if the game has unlimited continues, I'm not cheesing anything, you know, I'm just like picking up where I left off.
Yep.
So, and it seems like, unlimited continues. So it's very difficult, but if you're committed, you can get through this one.
You can. I think that's right. And, you know, I wouldn't mind doing that at some point, but you definitely need to be committed. You need to basically learn this game, but it's fun to play. So it's not a problem. And like the soundtrack is great. The graphics are really fun. The graphics are even like a little bit more zoomed in than I'm typically used to for this type of action game, but it doesn't hurt it. You know, it just looks really good. Like it's, and it's published by IREM, who like always publishes just badass games. So like they've got that going for it too. The level design, lots of, you know, varying things in each level. The bosses, even though it's one hit kill, are all really unique.
The 2 I've seen.
Right. And
they were
a really
different.
like ambitious concept for a game that came out in 1991. There's a level timer, but it never really came into play, at least through the levels I've been in.
I never died due to, you know, even though I got stuck, and I got stuck for a long time until I figured out how to jump. So jump off the ceiling. So yeah.
So either version of this game you can get a hold of, I think is totally cool. If you get that re-release version, it's based on the Japanese version, which I think looks even cooler because it's a little bit brighter and the colors match up against like the cover art of your M308, you know, gunner character. So they did like little touches like that, but it's also harder too. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. That's awesome though. That's awesome.
It's a great game.
Yeah, and I know that we both spent just a little bit of time with another NES game.
Yeah.
And this one, even more, at least for me, was more frustratingly difficult
100%.
in the sense that it does not have unlimited continues.
No.
I think it has like 2 or 3, maybe. I think 3. But Kabuki Quantum Fighter.
Yeah, Kabuki.
And the reason I just always associate these two games together, and I think I might have mentioned, I can never remember if it was during a podcast or like off-air banter or whatever, but our buddy Max and DJ used to like stay up late and I would go to bed in my room, and Metal Storm was one of the games that they like stayed up all night and beat in my bedroom while I tried to sleep.
Nice.
Because the system was all set up in my room, and I was like, well, I mean, you guys are making progress, and like I need to go to bed, but like I'm not going to make you pull the plug on a retro game. You know, you guys are committed. So
Yes.
Kabuki Quantum Fighter, for whatever reason, was another game that Max was always just talking about. I think just because the name is fun to say.
Of course.
And there's no denying that.
Yes.
And the game is certainly fun to play. There's no doubt about that, even though it is frustrating and difficult in like that kind of like old school Castlevania sense where you're getting knocked back all over the place. Yeah, you're getting like the character feels very Castlevania-y. Even to the sense that like probably one of the coolest things about this game is that your main attack, even though you have tons of attacks, but your main attack is like whipping enemies with your long hair.
With your long red hair. Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of just like lean forward and just just give them a nice whip.
Yeah.
And then, but you also have like these chips that you can spend, like an energy meter that you can like press the select button and, you know, kind of have like a little blaster that gets upgraded after you beat a few levels, or from what I've seen.
Which I'll say the game's pretty generous about giving you those chips too.
Even after you beat a stage, you get like not a full refill, but you definitely like, I don't know if it takes your points or score or something into consideration, but it definitely goes like, here's a refill for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You get a little bit.
Yeah, it's solid in that regard, but man, this game is tough, and it's probably going to lead into the conversation we're going to have a little bit in a moment here. But like, it's just like I found myself like, as much as I was enjoying the style and the everything about it, really, like all the retro, it was hitting every retro note that I love about NES games for the most part. You know, Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania. Like, if you like those games, like it pretty much is those games. You know, it's like maybe with a little bit less polish, like when you're like jumping off a ladder, it feels kind of stiff, and like little things like that, like feel just a little off. And this is a HAL Laboratories game.
I
which
know,
is mind blowing. Like I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
I know Human Entertainment was apparently the primary developer, but HAL Laboratory was involved in publishing it and helping out with it at the very least.
The greatest HAL Laboratory.
I love.
But
HAL.
I found this game to be like, as much as I was like, hey, this is cool. Yeah, this is fun. Like I just kind of, I was left feeling like there's no way I would ever, I can't imagine today committing myself to actually beating this game. I really can't picture it.
Yeah. Unlike Metal Storm. Yeah. It's just like Kabuki Quantum Fighter was just a little bit too hard. A little bit like it could have used just a little bit more refinement, I guess. Maybe a little like
I agree.
It's a little picky to say like quality of life improvements when we're talking about like retro NES games, but that's kind of the feel where like Metal Storm has a little bit of that, and some of these late NES games especially do have a little bit of that, you know, by that point. But it like Kabuki felt a little bit more like just brutal old school, and I'm like, I can't stick with this. Like by level 2, I'm like, I've had enough pain.
Yeah, because even with the save states, I'd have to be in like the mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna beat the first level the best way possible, then do a save state, because there's no way I can cheese like the infinite continues.
Right.
So it just kind of got me thinking that like, and I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, but like, with newer indie games, like there's so many of them that give that retro feel and get, you know, I don't need to bust out my retro consoles necessarily to get that retro fix or to get that pixel art or chiptune, whatever it is that I'm looking for.
Right.
You know, I don't necessarily need that. And it just kind of got me thinking to where like there are some of these really charming retro games. Like I'm always going to love Super Mario World. I'm always going to love like my favorites, you know, the best of the best I'm always going to love. And even like just the ones I kind of grew up with. But I just kind of found myself thinking like, man, if I'm looking for that retro fix, I'm gonna lean towards the modern indie stuff because like I feel like the difficulty in like a modern indie game as opposed to a retro game, like you're getting into a lot of memorization when it comes into retro games and a lot of cheap enemy placement. Not in all of these games, like not in every single game for sure. Like you can play Mario 3. I don't feel like there's any cheap stuff that happens in that game.
Yep.
And even Metal Storm, what I've played, even though it's very difficult, it's just made to be that way. But like that's the way it is. It doesn't feel like it's like surprising you with like you climb up a ladder and immediately get hit by an enemy where like the only way to know that you need to stall there is like after taking the hit the first time,
Right.
So it's like it just got me thinking like, man, when I'm looking for that feeling, these modern games, it's like the difficulty is more based on like your reflexes and not based on like your memorization. So like
totally
the Saturn game I was talking about earlier, like it gets really hard. Like I've made it to level 25, but I've also died at like level 7. And like it kind of just depends on like it's either my fault or even if it's just like, oh man, I got kind of screwed on that seed, or like, man, I didn't get any good power-ups on that run, or I didn't get the stuff I wanted, or man, whatever the reason is, there's like, the next time. And that some of that applies only to roguelikes where it's like, oh, the next time might be a totally different run.
But even that's a conceit you kind of go in knowing about roguelikes too. And it kind of is what it is. Like that's fine too.
But even stuff like, again, to bring up Celeste again, but Super Meat Boy, whatever, Super Meat Boy breaks it down into like single screen levels essentially. But like Celeste is like, there's so many checkpoints, the challenges are like, they're more challenging, I think, but they're less frustrating.
Yeah.
Which is I just find that really interesting. I don't know. I find myself like, I'll bash my head against the wall on a single screen of a game like Celeste for 30 minutes, but like, I'll play Kabuki Quantum Fighter for 30 minutes and be like, yeah, I'm never going to beat this game. But like, it's so weird how like, I don't know. It just the difficulty feels so different to me.
You get that breather in something like Celeste with that next screen or checkpoint where there's no guarantee of that in Kabuki Quantum Fighter.
Yeah. Or it's like one step at a time or something. Right. It's not like, I got to memorize this whole game one step at a time, but fully put it together in a complete run, Right.
It's definitely compartmentalizing it and like adding those checkpoints and save points, because that's like you mentioned Super Mario 3, which is not a remotely challenging game by like comparison to some of the other ones you have, but lack of save points just does it. Like it's a convenience thing for me. Like I am, again, more willing to do something in a Celeste, say like the final like area of that, which is a bunch of like precision platforming and getting things like right on the exact moment that you need to execute it. But it's an instantaneous restart and you have plenty of checkpoints. That's a good point too. All of it. Like, and once you add a little bit of friction to that, it makes it so much like less likely that I'll play it.
It's a good point.
It's so
it doesn't
true.
Take much.
It's so true. Yeah, that I think that's really well put. Like that little bit of friction. That's all those for me now. Like going back to these retro games, as much as I love them, like I really do love them. But like if they don't offer that kind of not even quality of life, I'm kind of using the emulator to kind of give me that quality of life with the save states. But like if they don't have that at least kind of built-in infinite continues, because even some of these games they'll have infinite continues, but you kind of reset. You don't have any of your upgrades anymore, or whatever the situation might be. And then that's the case in a lot of modern games too. There's a lot of modern games that totally screw you. And even, Dark Souls you've been talking about a lot lately, John. And I know that like, I don't know how I haven't played much of those, but I don't know if you feel like those get more into memorization or if they get more like, because I know a lot of people kind of praise those for getting into that retro difficulty realm. And kind of reinvigorating that, but to me, they feel Dark Souls almost feels like it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, because once you add that RPG element to it, like that changes it completely. Honestly,
that's a good point. Yeah,
I was thinking about like the ending of Ashen, and I think like I was getting to the point where I was just like, man, like I don't really. That game doesn't have leveling in the same way. You kind of get health upgrades as you like progress through the game. And I was at like the final boss, and like there was like no opportunities to get any more health or any more stamina or anything or any better like weapons at that point. So I was like, you know what? This might be my limit. Like, I might just not beat this game because it's just going to take, it's just going to be that memorization or that like lucky break or RNG. And you know what? I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Any more thoughts on that end as far as like the retro modern difficulty stuff goes? I mean, I know this will certainly come up again on the podcast, I'm sure, because we're always kind of crossing those two, worlds, I guess.
For me, I know there's like, obviously there's some nostalgia baked in, some of these games I've been playing since I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, right? So that's obviously a factor in all this. But I think that's also why I'm so attracted to a lot of these homebrew releases now, because I still love retro games for the constraint that it forces on developers.
Yeah.
But what homebrew developers can do is take every game that's come out since those all those quality of life things we're talking about. They've experienced those things, and then they can bring it back to the constraints of the NES or the Genesis or these platforms and make games still within those parameters, but not be soul-crushingly difficult, or bring a little bit of that, that mix to get a little bit of that feel
back. And I'll even give a shout out to Sonic Mania for, I'm not a big Sonic fan, and even though that's not like a homebrew Genesis game, but I believe they did bring in the guy who did make homebrewed or, homemade like kind of Genesis game or Sonic games on his own.
Yes.
And they were just kind of like, hey, his games are maybe better than ours. Maybe we should bring him into the fold.
Smart choice by Sega there.
Seriously. And again, I'm not a big Sonic fan, like I've said many times on the podcast, but And I'm not even a big Sonic Mania fan, but I would say that that's been the most I've ever been compelled to check out those games, because I'm like, hey, somebody who loved those games as a kid made one now, essentially, with a bigger team, obviously, but like made one now with all of the things in mind that he loved about those games then, but also knowing what games are like now. I just like, that's the most compelled I've ever been with a Sonic game, just knowing that they brought that mindset to it.
Cut out a lot of the BS that is prevalent in those original Sonic games, but bringing in the things that you loved, or you remembered that you loved from those games, and that's why I do love Sonic Mania. I think it nailed it for that purpose.
And I'm sure we'll dig into more, not only NES games but homebrew NES games, and we've mentioned a little homebrew Game Boy too, so we got to get into that territory as well. Once we get around to that. But I think at this point we're probably good to wrap things up for this week, guys. And as always, you can find us at the internet. You can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. We're also at the internet, guys.
Around the internet.
We're around wherever you want us. Yeah. But no, we're also on you can find all our stuff at linktree/pursuingpixels. But Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, all that stuff. We're there. But until next week, we will catch you then, and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So someone was like, he's like, yeah, I spent like 40 hours building a zip line down this mountain that nobody ever went down, but I did it. And I was like, wow, that does sound... That's a John thing if there ever was one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just laboring on one completely unsatisfying thing for hours on end.
Yeah. But that's sort of what I did with like Breath of the Wild, was just like not fuck around, but like go for shrines. I need to finish that game, or just like start a new, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that game.
Just jump back into it. You don't need to finish it. Just jump back into it.
I know. There's just part of me that does want to go back and beat it. And there is part of me that was thinking the other day that I wonder if Breath of the Wild 2, if you are just straight up going to play as Zelda.
Let me now.
And no Link. I kind of think they're going to do it. I kind of think it's going to be a prequel. I kind of think you're actually going to play.
Oh, see, I think it's going to be
up to the 100-year battle. I think you're going to play up to when
that's what
Link
they did
dies.
in Hyrule Warriors.
Oh, well, see, I didn't have that inside scoop.
Yeah.
Well, now that was what I was thinking. I was doing my laundry the other day, and I was like, you know what? I just started thinking about that trailer again, and I was like, I wonder. I was like, I bet I could see them doing that. But
Zelda needs to be an action character this time around.
I'm hoping for kind of in the same vein as like the Wind Temple and Earth Temple in Wind Waker, where you kind of had to control two characters.
Yeah.
And like even kind of it in Spirit Tracks, where Zelda was a ghost. Like one of the most active Zeldas in a game, and she still is like a ghost. But she could possess a suit of armor, and that ruled. And so like you did play co-op with her, but like
nice,
man, I would like I that's why I feel like they would do a more like co-op in that respect of like like here are some puzzles that you need Zelda to do a certain thing, and here's a thing that you need Link to do a certain thing.
Yeah,
it's a goddamn Legend of Zelda. Let's play as Zelda for once. Come on.
Yeah, because I really think like they did such a good job of like changing up the style of like how they presented her in Breath of the Wild. Like, because she's just such more like I'm right there training like with you for this battle, like
a real person.
She's the main character, really, of the
And in my opinion, again, the story is I do like those little like story beats along like those little 12, however many pictures there are that you find. Like they're perfect. Like I don't even mind the voice acting, the English voice acting. I don't even mind it.
Yeah,
the British voice acting. I should say. It's not the best, but it's fine. It hits fine. The right like emotional tones. It's not like totally jilted. You know,
no.
Like there are games, you know, like what's it? Symphony of the Night. You know.
Okay, Symphony of the Night has impeccable
Dracula
or what you use men's souls. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
Yeah, it's so jilted.
It's the best.
I'm interested.
It's the best. It's the best, but it's the worst. Reality, especially in a new game.
Or fucking all the voice acting in No More Heroes, which is so.
I've never heard it.
Oh, it's incredible. Like it's the most like Fast and the Furious like level of like knows full well how over the top and cheesy it is and just leans in. Like Travis Touchdown holding like the decapitated head of like someone he just is like, I fell in love with your soul.
Like, oh my god. Oh my god.
I did just buy those limited run is doing physical copies of those games on Switch, so I'm like, all right, fine, I'm going to buy them.
Do you have them
individually, or is it like a collection?
Individually, they're selling them right now.
Did you have them before? Or?
Yeah, because I'm an idiot.
Only on Wii though, or did you have them on? Okay, so you didn't like rebuy the digitals on Switch and then okay, the triple dip.
No, no triple dip.